Well, James and I actually met when we were children, when we were about 3. And it was most definitely not love at first sight. But we grew up together and became very good friends, and then started going out just before we went to university. In God's providence, we landed up at the same university kind of accidentally. And so we went out throughout university and got engaged when I graduated, and then got married a year later. We had an incredibly happy marriage, lived a very ordinary life, both busy doing jobs, really involved in church. Just really normal, busy life. Nice. So we've been married for 4 years. I'd been very, very busy at work, and he was really tired and run down, and we just thought we needed a holiday, and we had a nice holiday planned. But then he started to be unwell, and he went to see the doctor, and he'd been to the doctor's not very long before, so the doctor sent him off to see a specialist because he had private health insurance. So off he went, and when he went to the hospital, they took his blood pressure, and it was unbelievably high. So that sort of triggered off the whole set of alarms, and so they did some investigations. Weren't sure what it was, said, there's something really odd, but it's really unlikely that he's got that, so don't worry about it. But then a month later, they said, actually, he does have this very rare tumour. And then slowly, over a couple more months, they then realised that, in fact, the tumour was malignant, and it wouldn't be possible to operate on it. It was probably like being run over by a bus. That's how it felt emotionally. Just slowly discovering that was the situation, and that this wasn't going to be simple to sort out. We actually had the news that the tumour was malignant on New Year's Eve, and then had to go home and host a dinner party. Going, okay. So that was, it was out of, I couldn't really understand it. We were just very, very scared. Didn't really know what this would mean. We just knew our lives had been massively interrupted, and we were really, really scared. But at the same time, we felt really looked after and really cared for. God's provision for us had been brilliant. Financially, in medical terms, but also in brilliant friends and family and a really supportive church, that meant that we didn't feel alone in all of it. It was more of a slow realisation that this was not going to get solved. His tumour was very, very rare, so it was very difficult for the doctors to be able to give clear guidance on what was going to happen. But at the beginning, the first year was quite hopeful. Just sort of nearly 18 months was pretty hopeful that they had it under control, and that while he would probably die of it, it wouldn't be for a good number of years. And so we'd actually hit a point where he was pretty well, and we were getting back into normal life. We landed up having a fantastic holiday that we'd postponed, and he was starting to think about whether he could go back to work. And then suddenly, it felt to us, he started to be unwell again. And the doctors confirmed that the tumour had started to regrow, much to their surprise and definitely to our shock. So I think at that point, that's when we realised that James's death was going to be a matter of not that long, opposed to 5-10 years in the future. And that was incredibly hard. At that point, we'd been married for 5 years. We were 27, 28. And that's not really how I thought it was going to pan out. So it was just a massive shock, and really hard to realise that instead of having the rest of my life with him, I was going to be looking to a life of widowhood without him.